Backdrops in auditions exist for basically two reasons. The first is to obviously hide all the stuff in the space behind you. But the second and more important reason is to push the attention off of themselves and onto you and your performance. So if your backdrop is dirty or wrinkly or poorly lit or covered with moving shadows, overly patterned, or if it's some crazy distracting color, then what's going to happen is your viewer is going to be distracted by those things when they should be giving 100% of their attention to you. Now, the 5 biggest questions I get asked about backdrops are: 1, how large should it be? 2, what should it be made out of? 3, how do I get wrinkles, ripples, etc. out of it? 4, what color should it be? And 5, how do I get rid of my own shadow on the backdrop? Let's deal with each of these one at a time. So how large should my backdrop be? Well, the larger the better, honestly. I mean, you want the backdrop to be as big as possible, because the bigger the backdrop is, the further away it can be from the camera before you see its edges. Now, this matters because the further the camera is away from the backdrop, the further you can be away from the backdrop. You and the camera and the lights can all slide further away from the backdrop. The further away you are from the backdrop, the less shadows are going to be cast on the backdrop from you and your lights. Now, the minimum size I suggest for a backdrop is 6 by 9. Now, it's just like the one I have behind me right now. If you hang it sideways, it fits perfectly into the horizontal or landscape frame of your camera. Now, the neat thing about 6 by 9 is you can also flip it 90 degrees and have a great full-body slate backdrop as well. What should your backdrop be made out of? If you have a blank wall, you can always use that as your backdrop in a pinch. The problem with walls, especially white walls or off-white walls, is that they're a little hard to work with. They tend to bounce off a lot of light, and in the end they can make you look a little washed out. In my opinion, a simple fabric backdrop is always a better bet. And for around $20, you can grab a fabric backdrop, just like the one behind me right now, by my favorite backdrop company, Kate. Kate backdrops are amazing. They're washable, they're slightly stretchy, so you can pull the wrinkles right out of them. They come in a million colors, and they look fantastic. What color should my backdrop be? For the color, I suggest either middle to light gray or a light blue, just like this one. Nothing too garish. With a backdrop, you're looking to create contrast between you and what's behind you so you stand out nice and crisp. Medium gray is perfect for that. This particular blue I also happen to love. It's got a little bit more spark and fun than the gray without being overpowering. How do I get rid of wrinkles? You don't want any wrinkles in your backdrop. Any, not a single one. You don't want your backdrop to be pulling attention away from you in any way. Stains and heavy wrinkles and folds can draw the eye away from the center of the frame where you are. If you're placing your backdrop on a wall, then use sufficient tape or pins and make sure you have at least 4 per side. Start at the top, then work your way down, tugging the material firmly as you go, and finally, pin it on the bottom. Think of the backdrop as a drum head that needs to be pulled tight so that it can play. Now, if you, like me, use a portable, collapsible backdrop stand, it's a lot easier. When I'm using my 6 by 9 backdrop, I like to mount it sideways to match the width of my camera frame. I find the middle of the backdrop and clamp that over the center of my top pole. Then I clamp either side, making sure to pull the fabric nice and tight. I find the best tool for this job are these little elastic Velcro clamps made just for this purpose. Starting from the top, I clamp the sides of the backdrop to the side poles and pull the elastics tight until everything is nice and snug. If your fabric backdrop is new and has persistent wrinkles in it, just toss it in the dryer with a damp white towel for about 20 minutes, and all those wrinkles will magically disappear. How do I lessen shadows on my backdrop? Shadows on your backdrop are caused by several things. 1, you might be too close to the backdrop, so your shadow, it doesn't have a chance to diffuse at all or travel off to the side. So try stepping as far away from your backdrop as you can. Move your camera and light further away too, if possible. This allows the shadow space to diffuse and become less powerful, and makes them fall further off of the frame. 2, your lights are too much to the front of you, so the shadows are more directly behind you. Try moving your 2 lights more off to the side. 3, your lights aren't diffused enough. Now, this could happen if your lights are too small. If this is the case, try adding some diffusion to the light. A piece of simple parchment paper can do wonders. Okay, enough about lights, audio, and backdrops. Now we've got all that in place, let's move on to the camera, the place where it all comes together.